there's a through line, which is people connect to people, not product. Your social presence is you. Your identity, you. Your ideal clients, you.
Craig Davis, Ascending Experience Coaching and Making Shift Happen podcast. Dude, I love Craig Davis. I think you guys are too. He's an executive coach. A leader's leader is the way he actually put it on the podcast. And he gave us so many good, like, actionable steps as to how to be a good leader, and how, a true leader is at the 10,000 foot level. And then you have people underneath at the 1,000 foot, people underneath at the ground level, and everybody's got their job to do. But, without vision, people will perish. And that is true. So if you want to be a true leader, you have to know how to have vision and how to cast that vision to your people. Now, with that said, right, I wanted to step back in that conversation with him because, quite honestly, a lot of the listeners, probably you right now, you're a loan officer / mortgage advisor, right? You're in the trenches. You are on the ground. But the truth is if you don't step away and rise above it sometimes and start working on your business, you're never going to get off the ground. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. All right, here we go. We got my boy, Craig Davis, on with us today. So Craig, thank you. Appreciate you coming on. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Got my workout in this morning. I'm feeling pretty good. Ate a little brain food to kind of wake up the juices and get the neurons working. So I feel pretty good. I'm excited.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to start it off just right out of the gate with this. Craig's not 6'7". He is. Did you see that?
Just right into the mic drop moment. Now, I may not be 6'7", but I am 8'5" or more.
So it's funny because Craig was just on stage at Sales Mastery, and he was trying so hard to just drop 6'7" somewhere. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I asked him later, and he's like, I don't know what it means. Just, this is what all the kids are doing. So I came home.
I had a couple plants in the audience as well because I knew that because by the way, nobody knows what it means. And there's an origin story to it, but it's absolutely ridiculous. And I really think it's the Gen Z's way of just ticking off all of us as parents, or the Gen X's and beyond. So I dropped that nugget, for everybody listening, right? As Sales Master in Dallas, I don't know, about 700 people there. So I slipped into 6'7", into my keynote, and I had about 50 people in the audience as plants. Like, you've got to yell when I do this. And I had about 50 people, and then about 650 confused, people looking at me. But I consider that a success. So thanks.
I was confused, but I just used it. So now I'm cool, just like you are.
Exactly. Well, it helps
All
you
right.
if a girl that embarrasses her every time you say it.
So, dude, let's just jump right into it. Let's tell everybody, first and foremost, who are you, both personally and professionally? Who are you today?
So my name's Craig Davis, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for being here. I am an executive coach and a consultant. I am a keynote speaker. I am now a podcaster, and I will be soon, maybe next year, an author. I have a book, on my roadmap. And I am ultimately a leader. I'm a leader's leader. And so I like the question because I actually talk a lot about identity and making sure your identity is tied internally, not externally. And so all of that is internal within me. And that's who I am. But that's always who I've been throughout my career. So I was in the mortgage business for about 20 years, sales, into regional management, and then into senior and executive leadership. And I was running all production for the Western United States for a publicly traded mortgage company. And then when that company decided to shut its doors, I found myself in let's just call it a opportunity to reinvent myself. So rather than, what I refer to as chasing the chicken inside the mortgage business, I decided to take a step back, and I started my coaching and consulting business. So that's who I am.
And I got just one simple question for you. Are you a good human?
I am absolutely a member of the Good Human Club.
So it's great because his bio says, in his own words, he is a good human.
And if you
I
notice
love that.
on stage when I was introducing Michelle, I even said, and another honorary member of the Good Human Club. And Dino, I believe that you're also an honorary member of the Good Human Club.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Uh,
And just to get this personal stuff out of the way, you're also a cancer survivor, which is
yeah,
a big deal.
it is a
How
big
long
deal.
ago did that happen?
About 3 years ago, which was and I'll even frame it like this. So, as I found myself, in this reinvention time, well, that opportunity that's my language, that opportunity also happened 6 weeks after I finished cancer treatment. So, I spent about a year in chemo and radiation fighting stage 3 cancer to finally get over the other side of that, to then 6 weeks later lose my job. So that is part of the story why I really did, take a step back, evaluate. It's also part of my story when I talk about your identity. So when you opened up, with that question, I was very, in tune with that because when I found myself in that moment, having just survived and conquered cancer, and all the chemicals, coming off of that from the radiation and the chemo and just like, oh my gosh. And, this was also what, 2022. So the mortgage business was disintegrating around us, and I remained in my leadership. I never took, essentially time off other than it's 2 o'clock. I'm about to pass out. I can't get on another Zoom call. And, and I'll say this, it was actually harder for me to lose my job when the company shut down than it was to fight cancer. And a lot of that is tied to when I did lose my job and the company shut down, I felt lost, like my identity got lost. Whereas when I was fighting cancer, I am a warrior, I am a leader, I put that into it. So actually fighting cancer was like, "Okay, let's go. I got this," right? And I remember saying like, even when the business was melting down, like, "I got this. Like, you guys have that. I'm not comparing, but I got this." And so it actually became kind of cathartic, and having a visible leadership, role within the company. It felt like I was fighting cancer, obviously for myself, like, obviously for my family, but like people were watching. And so I couldn't like fall down, type of thing. Like, and and so that actually like fueled me. And so the fight wasn't easy, but, like, the fight actually, I think that it was part of my identity to do that, and like I said, and then, so it was harder for me to lose the job than it was to fight cancer. And it's tied to that identity.
It's a really interesting comment. So a couple things I want to kind of pick through on that. Number one, were you a good human before cancer? Or did you become a good human after? Because sometimes you have to go through something difficult to realize that you should be a better human.
That's a really good question. I believe I was a good human. I believe I was a good human.
Okay.
Yeah.
And and you said something earlier, when you coach, I forget how you said it, but you coach to what people really are. Is that how did you say it? Um,
Um,
and let me go backwards, and I'll tell you where I'm going with it.
yeah.
A long time ago, I did a disc profile,
Mhm.
and it was something that wasn't normal. I'm a high D natural, but my work, there's two, right? The work one was a lower D, and my natural state was a higher D.
Mhm.
And my coach at the time said, I've never seen that before. Usually people pick up the D while they're at work and they bring it back down when they're not at work. She's like, why do you think that is? I said, I don't know, man. I guess I just always think of high Ds as assholes. So I don't want to be an asshole. But I learned something through that process, right? What it was that if you're not being true to yourself of who you really are as an individual, you're not actually giving your best out there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be an a-hole if you're a D. There's better ways to do it, right? But you'll be a more effective leader and a more effective human if you are more true to yourself because you'll be happier as well.
Yeah. And I think so here's where I like where you're going with that too, and maybe I'll tie this back to the question. Um, when I did get knocked down and I did face that, what am I gonna do now, after, suffering, from the cancer to the job loss, and then all of a sudden, now what do I do? What got me back up was, okay, what is my value? Like, what is it that I love in what I do. And this is kind of part of, some coaching mechanisms that I do with people. And what I realized was, and I had to bring back to light is I actually love leadership. I love leading others and I love helping others be successful in their design, not just my design. And when I thought about my career over the last 20 plus years from sales, I was really good at helping my clients be successful for what was important to them, getting to know that, understanding their goals and their objectives, and how do I help bring strategy into that. Same thing in management, same thing in overseeing, branch managers, same thing in leadership. Same thing, even when I'm diagnosing P&Ls and driving margin strategies, it's all rooted in strategy. And so that undertone, that desire to help you be successful, and if I can help you be successful, that helps me be successful. And I don't mean this in a cliche way. That was literally what I had to centralize back into. And I remember saying, I love being a leader's leader. I can apply that in any industry. I can apply that with anybody. So now I tied my identity internally. I understood my value. I understood what I love and what I do. And then all of a sudden that gave me confidence because I didn't lose my confidence. I misplaced it. And so then I had the confidence to step up and say, and literally the joke was Tuesday, 8 a.m., April 12th, I guess 2023, I think. I put pen on paper and faith plus grit and I launched this business. And that was it. I am now a coach. And I literally stepped into this future identity, this ideal future identity. And I'll even say this, and we have, shared friends. I was at a think tank actually for sales mastery, then momentum builder. Don and Gina were there. Ken Perry was there. Sasha Stair was there. Josh Pitts was there. And I didn't know Josh. I didn't know Sasha. And we went around the table and introduced ourselves. Said, hey, yeah, hi, I'm Craig, and I'm an executive coach for the last 5 days. And we all kind of laughed. But now if you ask any of them, they all remember that moment because now I can reflect and say this, but I legitimately said, I am an executive coach for the last 5 days. That is who I am and that is where I'm going. And that identity shift, it's been faith plus grit ever since. Now I put myself through some training. I went through the Neuro Leadership Institute because okay, now I'm legitimately doing this. Like I'm a great leader. I got great ideas. I got great opinions like all of us, I'm sure. But what do I actually do? And I'm very fascinated. Mindset is very, very critically important in what I do. I'm very fascinated in the neuroscience. So I put myself through the Neuro Leadership Institute, got some training on coaching and that sort of thing. And then my first client, I launched June 1st, officially, 2023. And when I look at my board of clients, it's all, not all, a lot are people that used to work for me, work with me. I've had my boss hire me as his coach. Prior boss hired me as his coach. I've coached professional athletes. I've coached people outside of the mortgage business, executives, leaders, salespeople, coached people in the government space. So I'm going to tie this back in. I'm confident I can help virtually anyone because I get down to the root. And I have a leadership undertone and everything, helping you be a better leader. I don't care if you're in sales. I don't care if you're truly in leadership and because I do believe, well, leadership is a behavior, not a title. And I do believe we are better at what we do when we have a leadership foundation underneath us.
So let me ask you a question. When somebody in leadership comes to you for coaching and they use the word manager, what do you say to them?
So I get this question asked, like, what's the difference between a leader and a manager? All right. This is my simple definition. A leader pulls and a manager pushes. Time and place for both, but a leader pulls and a manager pushes by all means. Now I can take that a little further. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole a little bit, but so right now, here we are, right? End of the year, we're all thinking business plans, and I do a different process. I just call it your business blueprint. I do a simplified version, and then I do a lot of strategic planning. That's becoming a new niche of mine. Get in a room, whether it be with leaders, a team, doesn't matter. day or two and we dive in, we do strategic planning together because I'm really, really good at helping extract what's on your mind, helping you take that to the next level, helping create clarity in the room. But quite often, because it's a burden you're carrying, you're trying to figure it out. I love watching the moments, right? Because it's not just the words, but I'm looking between them. And also, I see like, this like feeling. I just had one in LA last week, and the CEO was like, "Oh my God, I immediately feel better." 'Cause I was able to take this burden, put it over here, and then I stretch it out and create clarity. I kinda break it apart, and I use this thing called what I have created, which is my business blueprint framework to help do that, and then part of that process, I talk about defining leaders, managers, and doers, right? Leaders, 10,000 feet, right? Vision, where are we going? Why is it important? Managers, 1,000 feet, right? The managers typically are at the strategy level. So vision, 10,000 feet. Strategy is about 1,000 feet, right? The managers are driving the strategy that drives the vision. And then the doers, right? These are action, execution, right? And just that sea level. So we're executing the strategy, which drives the vision. So I kind of break that apart. Not always that simple. Sometimes we have to play all roles. We know that. But I break it apart because as a leader, and as a CEO and as an owner, you can't do everything. You can't be the quarterback, throwing the ball to yourself as the wide receiver, blocking and tackling, offense, defense. Like, we got to break this apart. And sometimes these are roles. Sometimes these are just as a leader, I'm going to dive into this business pillar. Maybe I'm 10% in and I got my managers and my doers that are driving this business pillar. But other business pillars, you may have to dive in 100%, 80%, get this thing lifted off. Now you got to implement the managers and the doers to keep this thing going so you can move on to the next business pillar, especially when we're, launching and starting things. But as the business is running, we got to fine tune. We're always kind of lifting up a new business pillar, but we have existing business pillars that are always going to be in place, right? And so it just kind of helps see things and break things apart a little more clearly, right? And so I know it's a long answer to leader versus manager, but I wanted to give a little more context because that strategic planning process really helps kind of flesh that out.
Yeah, no, I love that actually. I thought a little bit about like the military structure
Yeah.
in a kind of situation like that where, there's the general, right? And then he's 10,000 feet and then it just keeps dropping from there. And then you got the guys on the battlefield,
Yeah.
right? Ground level.
Yeah.
And you always have to have a little bit of everybody. Otherwise,
Yeah.
everybody's running around without knowing what they're doing.
That's right. And even as the general, sometimes you got to be on the battlefield with them, right?
And
But
nobody will
not
respect you
yeah,
if you've never been there
that's right.
and if you don't show up every once in a while. I think, just from personal experience, right? The I've owned the company for a while now, but the reality is I've never tried to grow it before. It just kind of happened on its own, and it's because, quite honestly, I was the biggest producer,
Yeah.
and I got a lot of respect from being the biggest producer. And I think I'll always have that where nobody can say something to me about I don't know what it's like, right? And I get respect from everybody on the ground floor for that. But when I decided I'm going to grow the company, the first thing I did is I actually stopped producing. And for me, it was a bit of burning the boat, so to speak. Um, my wife still doesn't understand why, why I'm doing this because she was used to like, hey, all you have to do is open your mouth and talk, you'll make money. I'm like, it's just like when I started in the mortgage business. I'm doing it all the time, but it's going to be a while before I get a whole bunch of those realtors to start giving me business. It's going to be a while before I get some of those really good loan officers now to start producing, right? But what I did is I immediately went into hyper mode of how to be a great leader. one of my favorite books was Good to Great. And there's a lot of good companies out there. Even said there's a lot of good churches out there, right? But there's very few great companies or great churches or great people. And that was one of the things I really took to heart. And I was like, all right, how are we going to be different than everybody else? And how are we going to be great? And I really went into, and it didn't happen overnight. It took a while, but I formulated this entire plan of how we're going to be great, and started putting it into action, which took a minute, right? Like, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's where, you can read any book or listen to somebody successful. Success doesn't happen overnight. I even made a post about it a long time ago. I don't know, 6 months ago or so. And I said it was right when we started taking off. Like, all of a sudden we're seeing growth, right? And I was like, everybody's gonna wake up and say, "Oh, overnight success." But they didn't know that I was in here at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
that day trying to make it happen, you know?
Totally.
But what I learned as the CEO is that I have to stay at the 10,000-foot level for, I'm gonna go with 95% of my day. Otherwise, I just keep falling behind.
That's scale. So part of when I talk about the business blueprint process, one, where's our vision? We define our business pillars. These are our verticals, right? And I go and I do a VSC plan, vision, strategy, execution. So we're just kind of breaking this stuff apart. Then I go into what's called agility, right? And you've probably heard that, agile leadership. So if these are our verticals, our business pillars, agility is the horizontal. Agility is the horizontal over each one of these business pillars. That's why I stretch it out and give that context about leaders, managers, doers, 10,000 feet, 1,000 feet, sea level, vision, strategy, execution. Because now, to your point, you have to be agile, right? And I kind of use the football analogy, right? Like, if I'm going to be, I got to have low center of gravity and be able to do this. So you have to be able to dive in because you also have to preserve that. Maybe it's 10% here, 20% there. Maybe it is 100% over here, but you can't be 100% on everything. You just, so that's creating scale. And you've got to be able to remove obstacles, all the different things that the CEO has to do. That's leadership. And your people are looking at you as the leader, right? And this is a very common thing, especially now it could be branches, it could be young companies that are growing. Your exact same scenario. I was the highest producer. And a lot of times in branches and other, and I actually am doing a strategic leadership or strategic planning event in Napa in about a month, helping a team, a group. They want to go from X to 2 billion. So we're going to help. So I'm going to help them map that out. How do we do that? And it's things like this, and that can be hard for people. And I want to recommend a book for you as well. I'm going to give you a book. I just finished this book. It's called From Strength to Strength. The central premise, and I think for what you're doing, for what I'm doing, especially in our age, in our age bracket, the central premise is basically in the first half of our life, especially in our career, and we're chasing success, we have what's called fluid intelligence. We're smart, we're learning, we're driving, we're chasing success, all those things. And by the way, that's a whole other rabbit hole about success. And then we hit, let's just say on the back half, we actually go from fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence, or in other words, going from smart to wise. And there is a degradation over time that, you can't keep chasing, the grind, so to speak, over time. You will degrade as you age in that sense. It's just science. So that move into crystallized intelligence, you're going from smart to wise. And now, how do you apply that? So you're doing that. You're going from I was the top producer. I recognize a gap and a challenge in the industry, and I'm going to solve that. And you're solving that at Ethos. And now for you to help solve that and create opportunity attraction, you've got to be the CEO and a leader. So I ask you this question. Do you get value? Does it feel good? Do you enjoy helping your originators, your team, your employees, business partners, realtor partners advance their business, get better? Do you enjoy leading them to be more successful?
So it's a great question, and I'm going to answer it with yes, but I'm going to tell a quick little story because this is one of the things that happened when I realized that I was finally there. I used to say, I want you to beat me more than anything, but I still have too much testosterone left in me to let you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a cocky originator. Now I want them to beat my numbers. And it reminded me of being a dad. It's like I want my kids to surpass me in everything possible because I truly love them, right? And I want the best for them. And as a leader, if I can feel that same way about everybody that works at Ethos, I felt like I finally made it. I get a lot of joy now when I see that. And I also get a lot of sorrow when I see that somebody's not s- working at their fullest potential or, succeeding at their potential or as happy as they want to be.
And I think that is a really good representation of what we were just talking about, this kind of transition from this crystallized intelligence into fluid intelligence. This being wise, sharing, helping, coming from a different position now. And I know exactly what you're talking about. You asked me, was I a good human before cancer? Yes. Yes, I was. But what you're reminding me is that earlier in my career, I think when I went from sales into management and now I'm a manager, right? And one of my salespeople was making more income than me as a manager. Oh, man, I hated that. I hated that, right? But like, logically, I knew that was a good thing because he was producing more. Logically, that was good. Emotionally, I'm like, "Ah, I hated that." My ego was in the way, and certainly now, that part that's not that anymore. Especially like, look, as a solopreneur and as a coach, I'm helping people who make a lot more money than I do, and that does not exist. I get such joy when I hear like one of my clients, "Oh, Craig, thank you so much." I get such joy when we don't have a scheduled huddle and a client reaches out, "Dude, you got 10 minutes, man? I just need to work something out." Absolutely, I got 10 minutes for you. I got more. I get such joy when obviously referrals and all that stuff, that but like one of my goals is to be sought after. And so I get joy when someone says like, "I see you," or like, "You really helped." I had a client's wife reach out to me. "Craig, thank you so much. He would have quit and shut down the business if it weren't for you." Like that the income and all that stuff are results. Those are byproducts, but like that's the stuff that gets me up in the morning. And so yeah, yeah. So I'm happy you shared that. That's great leadership. That's a leader I want to be on that team and be a part of.
Yeah. And a coach actually taught me this a long time ago. He taught me, and it's really basically what you're saying too. You have to stay at that 10,000-foot level, but not to the point where you're out of touch
Yeah.
with what's really happening. And this was kind of the piece. And as a visionary leader, he goes, don't forget the word visionary. You have to you have to paint the picture of why people are following you, of why they believe in you. So you have to show them, but then you can't ever be status quo. You have to be painting this picture of where the next step is. And I remember that. I was like, that's a big piece. And sometimes we get so caught up with working that we forget to step back and keep everybody going, right? And keep it's like they don't know what I'm working on. If I could take a little time every day to let them know what I'm working on right now, because they're not even anywhere close to thinking about what I'm thinking about. But but man, if they could know what they're going to have in, the next 6 months, I think they'd be very excited about it, right? And that's gonna keep them happier and more believing in me and believing in the company and their decision to be here.
Yeah, and, it's like there's an art and a science, right? And part of this is just art, right? And, one thing, a couple things that I used to do, like, I was always very vocal, like, "This is my leadership style," right? Like, I tell people, "This is how I lead." I would share people, in fact, you're wearing the shirt, "This is my ethos," you know? I share people, "This is our mission, this is our purpose." I'd share, as a leader, my job is I'm gonna lead out in front, and I'm gonna pull you guys with me, right? All the things we're talking about, vision and strategy, and here's where we're going, and woohoo, let's go, and like, yes. And when I get the team moving in the same direction, I've got all my players going in the same direction. As a leader, actually, now what I do is I step out from front and I move to the rear. So then now I just got to keep that direction going while I start working, to your point, now on the next batch of initiatives. And I'll give them, clues and little breadcrumbs or whatever and yada yada. And then once we need to make that change or that pivot, and by the way, as leaders, we're always essentially change agents, in so many ways, right? And so then it's like, so I'm leading from behind now, and then okay, now we're going this direction, or here's whatever. Now I'm back out in front, and I would say this to people. This is how I view, so when I am in the background, this is why, But obviously, everything boils down to communication. It's the root of all good and evil, despite the actual results.
So I'm looking up something real quick. Let me see if I can find it here fast enough. We'll see how fast AI is.
Yeah, dude, I am down so many rabbit holes with AI right now.
Oh, I am so in love with it right now. Okay, so where there is no vision, the people will perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he, right? So I as leaders, right? If we don't have the vision,
Mhm.
then our people will perish.
Yeah.
They will either leave us or they will go down on the ship with us because we're not living that change that we're supposed to be doing as leaders to bring continually keep bringing our company into what's happening next.
That's right. And in the absence of information, people will draw their own conclusions, and those conclusions are rarely, positive and in favor. So that's why communication, is so critical. One thing, and for everybody listening, as I rose throughout my career, and then I found myself, in the executive chair, and I was running, all production for the Western United States. And I remember thinking to myself, and probably said this because I, talking to people, like, I'm not an ivory tower guy. I'm not going to live in the ivory tower. And of course, I think everybody would say that, but yet not everybody does that. And I said that. So I was trying to figure out, how do I get back down and make sure that I'm not stuck up here and all the things. So this is a stupid, simple thing, right? So, okay, here's my weekly meeting. Now, normally it would be like maybe just my regionals. But I said, no, no, this is going to be a weekly leadership meeting. And you are invited to this meeting if I see that you have a desire to be a leader, you want to be a leader, and you have the capability to be a leader. So, my regionals, key branch managers, key originators, it didn't matter to me your job title. It was zero hierarchy. That was our weekly leadership huddle. Now, this was also by design and many reasons, because now if I'm running, half the country, now I'm creating leadership influence with my key people throughout all the different geographies. And now I can influence each one of them. So whatever their challenges and opportunities are, profitability, margins, recruiting, growth, retention, whatever, we need this, we need that. I could then influence at a macro level and then dive in with each one of them, based on their needs and wants. And they're learning from each other. And I created a community of leaders as a result of doing this. So my weekly meeting, it was 50-50. 50% was housekeeping. Here's all the things going on. But 50% was generally, let's just call it mastermind, brain food. Whether it be we're sharing a book, sharing a podcast, here's what's going on. We kind of mastermind a little bit. And people from that meeting are clients of mine now. I had two people say, Craig, you're not in my life anymore. I need you back in my life. Will you be my coach? I said, absolutely. When I launched this business. So you know, was all that I mean, that was by design, but, like, more out of design of, "Hey, I wanna develop a community of leaders around me. That's what's important. You're invited. Here's how I'm gonna structure it and go." The results, obviously is what created really that culture and that community, and so when we did have major things, as we always do in the mortgage business, change, technology, compliance, legal, market conditions, take your pick. I could move mountains as a leader because I'd already built this equity, established this community of leaders around me. And so when I had to lead change, it was okay, here we go. Doesn't mean everybody loved it. You validate it, right? And you heard me on stage, presenting around, the big, nasty, ugly obstacles, change being one of them. Here's how we do that. So I was very, very effective at leading, change that way.
Let's we've been very high level. Um, I don't want to disregard the typical listener
Mhm.
to this podcast who is an originator.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, great. Man, I'm a loan officer, mortgage advisor. Um, I don't, I maybe it'd be great to get there one day, but
Yeah.
how do I get to 5 loans a month?
Yeah.
How, how do I get to a place where, I can start putting money in my retirement account? How do I get to a place where I can start getting referrals and I don't have to buy leads anymore?
Yeah.
Right. The typical loan officer. I, I'm going to ask you how in a minute,
Mhm.
because they're still leaders. In my opinion, they should still be leaders. And I'll let you talk about that. But one of the things is, if you don't ever pull yourself out of the business and work on it instead of in it,
Mhm.
I don't know if you'll ever get to a place where you can be a leader. So, framing it that way, talk to the typical loan officer.
Yeah, and I love this, right? And it's, like my ideal clients, branch managers, executives, um, and by de facto of that, originators. So I coach originators, but really, like we've been talking about so much in that leadership arena. So why are originators attracted to me, as their coach? Well, first and foremost, aside from the technicals and the background, what I find is you know what to do. You don't need me telling you to go call more agents and whatever. Like you already know what to do. If you really needed that level of accountability, I can refer you to other people that'll create that. Thank you. If you don't do what I ask, I'm not going to make you go do push-ups, but that's cool. If you want to do that, go to the core. You know what to do, but why aren't you doing it? And so I think of myself in this frame like an optimization coach. How do I optimize your behaviors? How do I optimize your mindset? So, first of all, there is no one size shoe. I have to understand what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to grow? What's success to you? And again, I don't mean this in even like a corny cliche way. Like, what does success mean to you? Like, yes, that's important. But like, okay, what are the things you need to do? So, first and foremost, we've got to develop patterns in your business. I don't believe in feral cat mortgage, meaning everyone's just kind of running around and just trying to like, swat at everything and we're all random and right. I mean, you can't run an effective operation that way, right? You can't run. So it requires leadership on your part. There's direction, there's vision. But me individually, I got to wake up in the morning. So I help people like, okay, what are your objectives? Do you want to do more social media? No. Okay. Well, you do realize social presence is really important. So I actually don't talk about social media. I talk about developing social presence. We need to have a social presence. So I get very close into now, personal brand is a buzzword. And again, we were talking about identity. So I get really close into helping people really dive into like, what is it that you love and what you do? What makes you successful? What do you want to do more of? Great. Now let's pull those threads and point those towards action, right? Building your social presence. Maybe some other people want to do more one to many strategies. I want to do more events. Great. Maybe other people that are building teams or branch managers, it's recruiting. So I talk a lot about and coach towards Well, I say it's growth versus recruiting, and that's a whole subject. So I'm very, very good at getting underneath what it is you're trying to accomplish. Now I'm going to help you get there. And then again, because of the technical,
Real quick, is that specific training to the neuro something that you training you did?
there's tie-ins. I mean, again, I can tie things back and like if people are hovering around stress, right? I'll do this a lot in my keynotes, talking about, for example, chase what you want, not what you need. I want to do this, that's a dopamine response. I need to do this, that could be a cortisol response, right? So helping people sort of like create that clarity, right? I'm very, very mindset driven. So I'll go back to what I was originally saying is like, what is your creating patterns in your day, for example. What is your perfect day and ideal week? What are those 3 objectives that you need to hit every day that moves your life and business forward? So we'll break apart. What are I call them your proactive objectives. And the obvious ones. Okay, marketing, sales. Great. What kind of marketing? Well, social media, database marketing. Okay, great. Those are 2 different proactive objectives. Okay, prospecting. Awesome. Who do you want to prospect? And by the way, I talk a lot about ideal clients. Who's your ideal client? Categorically, what's their character and what's their intent? Because when I when I ask this question in front of originators, say, okay, well, who's your ideal client? And I hear a lot, anybody who wants a mortgage. Oh, okay, right. Well, a first-time home buyer and a very savvy real estate investor, 2 completely different people.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick because I've done a lot of coaching over the years,
Yeah.
uh, which so I'm a huge believer in it, and I feel that everybody should. In fact, just to prove my point, um, I bet you if you went out to the most successful originators and asked them if they coach, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And not did you coach at some point? Yes. Are you coaching now? You're over 100 million a year. Like, why do you have a coach? You kidding me? I need it more now than I did back then. So, to everybody listening, coaching is big.
Yeah.
It's going to propel you into that next level, whether you know it or not. And I know this sounds silly, but now I'm going to go into who's your ideal client.
Yeah.
So I had a coach ask me that question one time, and you know, I was going to sound a little prejudiced, so I was cautious of saying it. And he's like, "No judgment here, mate." Is what he was from Australia. He's like,
I know.
just write it down. And he gave me stickies, right? And he said, this side is people that you don't want. This side is people that you do. And he's like, just put it down. I'm like, all right, Middle Eastern guys. Yeah. And he's like, okay, what else? I'm like, Chinese. What else? I'm like, Indian. What else? And I'm Greek, by the way. And I'm like, Greek. And he's like, okay, what else? And I kept going. And then he's like, all right, now who is your ideal client? And what's really interesting is I started focusing on who my ideal client is, and I got overwhelmed with the perfect ideal clients. And the most interesting part is I got plenty of Middle Eastern guys, Chinese, Indian, and Greek, but I didn't get those kind of Greeks. I got these kind of Greeks. In fact, I got more than I ever did before, but they were the good kind. They were exactly who my ideal client was, only not with that attitude, with this attitude. And guys, it was the best thing that I could have done for my business. And here's how it really kind of started for me is, 2008 for you, for those of you that were around back then was brutal, like absolutely brutal. You guys think now is brutal, and it is. Don't get me wrong, but but if you own a house, at least you're making money because your house went up in value. In 2008, not only did your whole income go away, but all of your equity disappeared.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I was there.
gone. Right. So it was a brutal time, and I was I don't know 2014, I guess 13. Yeah, it was 2013. My wife's pregnant. I'm like, oh my goodness. With my This is my fourth kid, by the way. And I was at a stage in my career where, everybody was like, "Oh, how do you have such great clients?" And I was like, "Well, I've been doing it for a long time." And I had graduated from that first time home buyer. So I had a little bit of higher loan amounts, and I'm in Orange County, so it was
Mhm,
excellent for that piece. But I had to make a conscious decision to start over at first time home buyers.
mhm,
um, One, it was tactical because there was so many of them and so many of them to come, right? And I knew I had to buy myself another 20 years. But also, I found this new passion for really helping first time homebuyers. I really enjoyed it, but I retooled how I did everything so that it wasn't a burden
yeah,
to deal with them, right? Like the only reason why they had so many questions before is because I did a shit ass job explaining everything to them early on. So I retooled how I did my initial consultation. I answered all their questions. They never had questions after that. It was the easiest thing in the world, and they were the most appreciative people. And oh, guess what? All of their friends were in the same boat needing to buy a house. And because they were my perfect client, they referred me all the time. I got more referrals than I'd ever gotten before, right? So I'm a huge believer, and I went off a little bit on how
no.
you said the perfect client, but it
Well,
is
that's why it's
the
so
best thing
critically
you can
important.
do.
It absolutely is, and again, the reason so much of the reason why is because you're creating clarity, and now you know how to cater. Why? So you can attract your ideal clients, right? Your perfect client, right? The coach in me jumped like as you were talking, I was passionate about helping solve what I would say solve their problems, answer their questions, educate, right? And that passion, that's where I was like, "Oh, I just see something. I'm gonna grab that little nugget because I'm gonna make sure Dino is really close. Because why? We're creating conscious awareness. Now you're gonna look through the world through the lens of I'm looking and I see first-time homebuyers. I know what their challenges are. I know what their problems are. I know what their stress is. And now I know exactly how to solve it. By the way, that's what I call your ideal client offer. Who's your ideal client? So we break that apart. What's their problem? And what's their stress associated with that problem? Now, how do you solve that problem? When you get close to that type of framework, and by the way, that framework, great for marketing. You want to create a social presence? I love, I work with first time home buyers. I know exactly what keeps you up at night because there is a belief that you can't buy a home at the age of 30 because the first time home buyer age is now 38. My whole purpose in life is to solve that gap. My whole purpose in life is to help you be the first home buyer within your group of friends. Like that's where we want to get close to. So I'm really good at helping. And this is where, when I work with originators, right, this is leadership in your origination. So now we're creating opportunity attraction. Now we're able to build a social presence. Now we're doing, and by the way, let's peel this apart. It's not just first time home buyers, but now we're doing education events. So we're attracting them and invite their parents because, oh, by the way, we might be able to help the parents. And if you're interested in not just being a first time home buyer, do you want to build wealth through real estate? There's a whole lane right there that we can now start helping in. So if I'm going to do that effectively, I want to start using Mortgage Coach. That's going to empower me to deliver a mortgage consultation. Do I want to attract more first time home buyers? I want to be part of first time IQ. I want to surround myself with others who are doing this, learn and educate. So shout outs to Chris Messerly, shout outs to Dave Savage, right? So you can
I was gonna
see
say
like
you sound like a salesman for Dave Savage.
I appreciate what he does, right?
I like the guy a lot, by the way, and I got a quick story to tell. Years and years and years ago, when Mortgage Coach was under $100 a month, like way under, I got it because he kept putting pressure on me, and I never used it. And then one day had a conversation with him, and he was like, he was pushing me a little bit, right? And I'm like, so I don't really need it. I said, my clients are all referred. They don't question me. I don't get shopped, right? I had the perfect client. And he's like, no, you don't get it. you, you need to do this. So whether they think they need it or not, because it's going to level you up on how they look at you, and you think you get a lot of referrals now. He goes, wait till you see what happens when you level up. And then I started doing it, and sure enough, he was right. And that's how you become that next level financial advisor, not loan officer.
Well, and that goes back to your identity. Who do you want to be as an originator? Of course, now let me scroll for a second. Are you a loan officer or are you a mortgage advisor? And why I say that is, look, we all think relationally. A lot of people act transactionally. A loan officer sounds very transactional. Did your loan? Great. Well, we have a lot of threats in the future of our business, so we don't want to just be transactional. We want to be relational. We want to create that identity. One thing I use a lot with my clients is building people into what I call mortgage strategists. If you want to be a mortgage strategist, something like a mortgage coach or an MBS highway or something in that frame, don't think of it as a product. It's a conduit, right? It's a conduit to you being that mortgage strategist. So that's where, I help and I work with originators. I've got originators that are 23, 24. I've got all my Gen Z guys that I work with and whatnot, and I love it. And I also work with the $100 million producers. And I also work with I've been originating for 1 or 2 years. So again, it's not just what to do, we're getting underneath so we can build a very successful, let's reduce stress while we're doing it. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun while we do this thing. And so that's sort of my approach.
It's like being married to your best friend. You're going to have a much happier marriage than, you know.
You want either
Um,
the problems or the solutions because you're gonna find them, right?
yeah. So we have a scheduled live webinar coming up.
We do.
Do you remember the date on that?
I don't.
Uh,
There's a
Finding Your
couple.
Genius, Wednesday, December 3rd
A
at
third.
11:30 Pacific.
I'm
So
now
for all
checking
you
my
guys,
calendar.
it's 11:30 Pacific on Wednesday the 3rd. And for all you guys listening right now, right, we're gonna start sending it, putting it out on social and all that. This will probably come out around the same time, but it's called Finding Your Genius Zone, right? And Craig's gonna be leading it. I think it's going to be great. I think you can tell just after him being on here today, he's really good at this, and he's got a gift for it. So I think, end of year preparing for 2026 coming up, this is the time to get your mind right so that you can push hard and I don't want to say and succeed and make a lot of money, right? But to get whatever it is that you want that's going to make you happy. And
Yeah.
if I could take anything out of our conversation today, I mean, you got to know what you want, right? And then you gotta have strategy around how to get to it, and then you gotta have joy that comes with it. Otherwise, what good is it all?
Yeah, and you know what
So,
I found? A lot of times people, they don't really know what they want necessarily either. So and again, let's take economics and put it to the side. I always just move economics to the side for a second, you know? And that sometimes is, like, helping pull that clarity out. So
which leads me right into one of my last questions. It's usually my last, but it's gonna be my second to last. Leaving economics aside,
yeah.
if I took you out of your little comfort zone and picked you up and put you somewhere in the United States where you don't know anybody. And I'm giving you a little budget, like I'm paying for your rent, I'm giving you a tiny little budget. You don't have a lot to go do a bunch of stuff. It's old school, and you have to make $1 million before you can come back and visit your family. What are you going to do? What's the strategy? How are you going to make $1 million in the loan business, by the way, not anything else? Can't sell yourself. You can't go sell your body on the street or anything like that.
We're gonna do one-to-many strategies. We're gonna start doing one-to-many strategies, and we're gonna be very clear on our ideal clients, and we're gonna do one-to-many strategies, and that's gonna be, let's just say, weekly or every other week. We're gonna create invite strategy. We're gonna build social presence around that. We're gonna educate. We're gonna invite not just consumers, but also, realtors, business partners, financial professionals, and we are gonna become the known expert in what we do. And it's going to be first time home buyers. It's going to be move up buyers. It's going to be helping people build wealth in real estate. Let's just stick with those three because there's interrelation between all that. We're going to dig into that. And that million, I would say it's going to be like the compound effect. It's not going to happen at first. And you said I get a year? What's
You
my
just
time
don't get
frame?
to go see your family again until you make $1 million.
Yeah. All right.
So a year's
Years gonna be a
tough,
little
but
long for
yeah.
that, but this is still, I think, the right strategy. What my point on that was going to be that it's going to be a little slower at first, but it will compound, and you will become the resident expert, and you're going to have a lot of business, social presence, like we were talking about, marketing advantages, referral opportunities, all rooted and built into that.
So question for you, is that strategy strictly for referral partners, or are you going directly to the public with that? Which one is, or
It's
both?
it's both.
Both.
It's
Okay.
both. And I want the same people in the room. And because this is also going to create opportunity for those referral partners, realtors, for example, who I'm not doing business with yet. I'm giving value, giving, not asking them. Give earns me the right to ask.
Yeah. So I love that. First of all, I think it's a great strategy. I'm going to dig in a little bit and make you coach a little bit now too. Um, okay, great. I'm gonna do some one to many strategies. I got the three that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna invite everybody. Nobody knows you.
Mhm.
Why are they gonna come to your event? And is it an in-person event? Is it a Zoom event? Give me some details, man.
It's gonna be in
And
person.
tell me, huh?
It's gonna be in person.
Okay.
Um, I am going
Food, no food, drinks, appetizers.
we'll have light apps.
Okay.
I think we'll probably put a little investment into it and maybe have a happy hour afterwards. Maybe at first to try to create a. I think at first we have some food, we have a happy hour because we want to draw people in because they don't necessarily know me, but if I can get a little attention there, we're gonna have
You don't have a lot of money, by the way. So how are you gonna pay for it?
just beer and wine only, no open bar, just beer and wine only. How about that?
Maybe also get
Well, what's
local
my
title.
budget? You said I don't have a lot of money. What's my frame
Maybe
here?
get a. I'm trying to help you a little bit here. Maybe get a. This shit. This is stuff that I did, way back when. Right. I got my title rep, my escrow rep,
Hmm,
and
good
my
one.
appraiser to all pay and pitch in to help me pay for all this stuff.
See, I'm going with the assumption I don't know anybody and nobody knows me. So,
No, but
but
everybody, but all those people want your business, right?
true. And I have that reputation somewhere else. So I'm calling my rep from home to have him call his local rep there to get the sponsorship. That's a really,
Fine.
really good
That.
idea.
Yep. That's a
Love
great
that.
idea.
Yeah. Probably gonna have to do social media and do some geofencing and probably some paid advertising to really create more, get more attention in there. I'm also gonna structure it so that these aren't just one-off events. There's gonna be a series of events. So once I can get some people in the room, then I want to get them into the room next time and create a reason for them to invite somebody so we can get into the right, momentum. Um, what else am I missing? Give me some coaching on this. What am I?
I I always laugh because I was gonna say, the best way to get free advice from an attorney is to take them out to lunch, because right, and the best way to get free advice from a coach is to either have them on a podcast or take them out to lunch.
Is this
It's
good advice? I mean, is this
well, it's great advice. I mean, I ask this question to everybody, and it's my favorite question because,
it's a great
um,
question.
it really makes people think, and sometimes I let people slide on certain things. Other times I push them a little bit like I just did you, because it's easy to say you're gonna do this, but I know people listening right now, they're like, "Yeah, but how? How do you do that?" Right? Like, easy, but how?
Yeah.
And, you don't know anybody. You don't have a reputation per se. So, I guess if we're gonna just spitball now back and forth, I would say you have to create a persona for yourself that you want everybody to think of you
Yeah.
as, right?
Yeah.
And I think with today's day and age, social media is probably the best thing you could do, because it absolutely hits the many in a very short period of time, right? And then you can front load a lot of your social media, make it look like you're this and that and doing, and then every time you go somewhere, I mean, quite honestly, right? And this is just strategy. I haven't done it, but I would if I was in this position. I'd go by real estate offices. I'd do a selfie next to the picture and be
Ah.
like, just making another call or making another visit. Right. And now other realtors are seeing me with that, and then back and forth to other ones. Hopefully I get a lunch or a coffee or something, and let's do a selfie together. Right now I'm building this persona of I'm busy and I'm meeting, like, all these people know me. So I'm going to tell you a quick little story because I'm feeding off of this a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking some things too from a client I was helping a year ago. So yeah, go for it.
All right. So years and years ago, when I was brand new in the business, um, I never did leads. So it was all about getting somebody to trust me. And I wasn't even 30. I think it was 28 or something. Right. So at the end of the day, it's like, why would somebody trust a 28-year-old? And one of my best friends was a realtor and he wouldn't give me any deals. And I was like, dude, we're best friends. He goes, I'm not risking my paycheck with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. He goes, I'll tell you what, you go and learn how to do the business. And when you come back and tell me, I will trust you one time. And if you do a great job, then you'll keep getting more. But if you fail, you're done. Like, this is my best friend. Best thing ever said to me, though, because it's true. It's like, I learned real fast, like, why would a realtor trust their paycheck with me? Right. So they have to think that I'm very good at my job. And quite honestly, that's a stupid way of saying it because you better be good at your job. Like, that's just a given. Get good at your job. Right. So telling the story now, and I've told it on the podcast a few times, but I love this. In Newport Beach, every year there's the Newport Beach Boat Parade. And it's a big deal every year, right? And I knew a guy who had a small boat, so we decorated it with Christmas lights and all that stuff. And I asked him if I could use it. Of course, he's like, "Yeah, but I'm driving." And then I didn't have any money, so I went to my title rep and I asked him if he would join and bring. And I didn't know anybody either, right? I didn't know any other realtors. I said, "And you can bring, 3 realtors." But can you bring some appetizers? And then I went to my escrow rep and I kind of did the same thing. And I'm like, but can you bring booze? Right. And then I brought the music. So they all brought people. I brought 2 people that I knew, right? And that's it. And then at the end, I made a speech thanking everybody for coming and letting them know also that, I know, a lot of you guys know that I'm fairly new in the business. It's been less than a year. It only been like, I think, 5 or 6 months, but I'm like, it's been less than a year. But I just want to personally say thank you because I couldn't have done it without you. It's been the best first year I could ever ask for, and I'm grateful. Keep in mind, nobody's given me a deal yet. Very next day, I got my first deal. Why? Because they all thought that the others were giving me business. So it's perception in the beginning when you're trying to make it go. And that's why I love that question of what would you do? Nobody knows you, right? You got to create something. And another thing too, and I'm just gonna and I know this is old school, but I'm gonna go old school for a minute. I would go to broker previews and open houses as much as I can. And again, now that we have social media, take pictures the whole time you're in there and you're just filling your feed up with things that your audience is looking for. Right? My audience was real estate agents. And as long as they knew I was hustling because I was out there all the time, I was everywhere. And oh, hey, these people must know me because I'm at their open house and I'm taking a picture with them, right? Whatever it might be. Perception.
This is why, and also like old school is new school again because nobody's doing that. So it's not all about AI. It's not all about this stuff. Let that stuff leverage and amplify you, but it's still you. Maybe I'll leave everybody with this. I use this, this is one of my Craigisms. People connect with people, not product. And that's why all of this is so important. Everything we talked about there's a through line, which is people connect with people, not product. Your social presence is you, your identity, you, your ideal clients, you. How do you connect that? And people care about what you care about and be great, right? And all of that is going to create opportunity attraction.
And I'll close out with this then too. So everything he just said,
Yeah.
and be good, be a good human, but eat well, right? Like, make good food choices, spend a little time working out, spend a little time on yourself being happy because it does radiate out into everybody else. And remember, you are in sales, right? Like, you need to have a good presentation. You need to be a happy person. People like and love happy people. If you're miserable or you don't like what you do, they will know about it. They will see it. Love what you're doing, love who your clients are, and I guarantee that'll just come out of you, and the attraction will be there. So I hope you guys can all be honorary members of Craig's Good Human Club. Yeah, you know, dude, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much. And if somebody wants to listen to your podcast, which I
Yeah,
enjoy,
yeah.
take it away.
No, brother, I appreciate the conversation. I love the conversation. It just happens to be recorded right now. I mean, you and I talk like this all the time, and I love seeing at the events, and I appreciate this. And I love this. Like, I love this. I always tell people, if I could win the lottery, I'd do this for free. Right. By the way, ding, 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 ding. Ask yourself that question. What would you do for free if you could win the lottery? You can find me, my website, ascendxc.com, and my podcast, Talking Shift with Craig.com. Talkingshiftwithcraig.com. You can check out my podcast, which my man Dino will be a guest on as well, come up here very soon. Super excited about that. So, and if I can help in any way, just reach out. You can find me on the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the good stuff. And I give free huddles all the time. So if you're stuck on something, curious, just reach out.
So, guys, if you guys enjoyed this, I hope you guys give us a little bit of love as well. Like it, comment on it, share it, of course, right? All the algorithms that matter out there do matter for us as well. So, we could use a little love, and we love you guys. And we're here to empower you, equip you, and educate you in the way lending should be done. And we hope that you enjoyed this as much as I have. So, we'll see you next time.